It will come as no surprise to you that I am no fan of radical, extremist LGBTQ activists. As a Christian, I try to love everybody, but I will be honest and say that there's a special place in my heart for these kind of people who try to shove their religion down the throat of everyone while also claiming that it is Christians who are doing that. Nonetheless, probably the cardinal for this religion, the bishop of this religion, is none other than Megan Rapinoe. When she is not complaining that she's not getting enough money for kicking a ball down a field in a sport that nobody could actually care about watching, she's also giving us brave and bold theological arguments. And she did just recently, in her last game of her career ever, give us, I think, perhaps one of the most profound theological arguments in the history of the world. And so, if you believe in God, it's time that you paid attention to Megan Rapinoe, because she has some things to share with you, and she's not going to let you down easy. She's going to let this truth hit as hard as it needs to, because just recently, the New York Post reported that U.S. soccer star Megan Rapinoe did her best to laugh off an injury she suffered in the final match of her career on Saturday. Rapinoe went down in the 6th minute as OL Reign lost to Gotham FC in the National Women's League Championship on Saturday night. I know what you're thinking. You didn't even know that there was a Women's Soccer League Championship or that it was Saturday night, but it was. Nonetheless, Rapinoe said she believed she tore her Achilles in the post-match press conference. Rapinoe said she was going to get the Aaron Rodgers treatment to try and recover from the injury. She said she'd reach out to him or whoever did his surgery. And then she ended by saying, "I'm not a religious person or anything, and if there was a God, this is proof that there isn't." Brilliance on display. Of course, I have never heard a more conclusive argument from an atheist than what we just heard from Megan Rapinoe. Perhaps the blue hair dye is getting to that brain of hers. Now, you might ask yourself, as I did, do you really think you have a gripe against God? I mean, what about the kids and the families that are suffering in Israel and Gaza right now? Maybe they have a reason to shake their fists at heaven a little bit more than you just injured yourself in a soccer game, which is often what happens. But also, we're to believe that Megan would praise God if she won. So she blames God for her injury and thinks that, if God existed, that would never happen. But if she had won that game and had done so healthily, we're to believe that somehow she might find it in her heart a convincing argument to believe that God actually exists. No, the reason I bring all of this up in the first place is just simply bad things happen most of the time because we make decisions and we try to blame God for it. We make decisions like going out to soccer fields, or we make decisions like opening our mouth and saying very dumb things. And there are repercussions for those things, sorry to say. But the real reason I wanted to bring it up beyond that, just to kind of talk about the theodicy thing, but the real reason I bring it up is just simply that Christians are the one who are stereotypically mocked for being unscientific, for throwing their brains in the garbage and for being superstitious. But here we have Megan Rapinoe actually doing that. I love what John Lennox says, and I've heard him say it a bunch of different times, and he was just recently on with Jordan Peterson on his podcast, and he said it again. It's a quote from Lord Alfred Whitehead, and then also kind of rephrased by C.S. Lewis, and it essentially says this, that men perform science because they believe that there would be law in nature simply because they believe in a lawgiver. In other words, they believed that the pursuit of science, the endeavor of science, would be worthwhile and that there would be intelligibility in the universe because there is an intelligible creator behind the creation of it. So, in point of fact, belief in God is actually the reason why science was originally performed. Now, there may be godless atheist scientists out there that are brilliant, people like Richard Dawkins and the like, but by and large, the origins of science have their roots in people who believed that there was a God who created the stars and that investigating those stars would tell us more about him and about ourselves. So the real people who should be mocked for being endlessly unscientific and superstitious are obviously yet again the people who refuse to think critically about whether or not there may be a God. But more importantly, this kind of mindlessness is really on display very, very often in the present. And what Megan Rapinoe said is an endorsement of the kind of total mindlessness that inhabits so many of the people in our in the West and probably in our country right now. And it's on full display as we see people marching through city streets calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. This just happened recently in Atlanta. And I'll show you this on the screen, but it looks to be certainly thousands, if not tens of thousands of people storming through the streets of Atlanta, declaring and proclaiming and calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Check it out.
I think so. It's for Palestine. Wow. Atlanta.
I want to assume something, and I know what assuming does, but I'm going to assume something real quick after hearing these girls and the way that they talked about that Palestine protest that was taking place down below them. They were up on some rooftop or maybe on the balcony of an apartment building, whatever the case may be, but they were looking down upon this protest, and then they started to say, yeah, ceasefire, and shout all sorts of other pro-Palestine rhetoric. But again, let me assume here for just a moment. I'm pretty sure that these girls could not find Palestine on a map if they were paid to do it. They may even shout from the river to the sea, but they would have no idea what river and what sea is actually being talked about there. The reason I say that is because there is mindless ideology possessing so many of people in the West today. And again, I say that the origins of this comes back to the fact that we are a purposeless group of people who are constantly riddled with anxiety, and even more so as we get rid of the thing that has provided faith and purpose to millions, if not billions, of people in the past.
So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely want to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.